This is your 5-minute crash course dressing 70s, even if you don't have vintage in your closet. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. And if you don't know me, my name is Sam, and I think I was trying to calculate it. I've been dressing vintage for like 7-ish years now. I started in the 80s and I've just been migrating backwards. I'm kind of in the 60s right now, but I like to think of myself as a 70s connoisseur. I'm not gonna say expert because I definitely am not an expert, but I know a lot about it and I do a lot of films inspired by the 70s. So with that being said, I'm very familiar with 70s wardrobe. I hope this is helpful for anyone that is interested in dressing more 70s. And as I said in the intro, you can do this without actually having authentic vintage pieces in your closet. We're gonna start from the bottom up, so let's start with shoes. For me personally, my staples when it comes to shoes are clogs and platforms. What you'll see is fashion is cyclical, so a lot of the times you can find 70s inspired pieces from different decades or modern. So for example, these clogs are actually from the 90s or early 2000s, but they look extremely 70s. And these platforms are actually from Target. I don't know if you guys have seen those videos going around on social, but vintage shoes can be tricky because sometimes the soles just like fall apart and you're like flapping in the back. That has definitely happened to me several times. So for me personally, I found more success in buying modern vintage inspired shoes. So moving up to pants, bell bottoms and flares are huge if you guys have not pieced that together yet. But bell bottoms are notoriously difficult to thrift because everyone is looking for them. Or if you do find some, a lot of the times they don't fit you correctly or they're super stiff. Out of my vintage and modern bell bottoms, I tend to reach for my modern ones more just because they're a bit more comfortable because they have a bit of stretch to them. I will preface that they are a bit of an investment. They're not necessarily cheap, but they will last you a super long time. I feel like these are in the vintage girly starter pack. These are the Free People flares. These are more so elephant bells, meaning that they're very wide at the bottom and they do have a little bit of a learning curve. I definitely tripped plenty of times over my pants, but a way that I can always spot these in the wild is the back of the knee. There is a seam, but as you can see, they are very stretchy and comfortable. Not to mention extremely high-waisted, which I love. So another pant material that was popular in the 70s is corduroy. I'm not being paid or promoted to say this anyway, but I believe that these hand-me flares are probably my best fitting pair of pants and most comfortable fitting pair of pants. These are their corduroy flares, and this is in the shade brown. Something else that I love about these are the super deep pockets in the front and the back. They're also high-waisted and just super quality material, and we love supporting small businesses. Okay, so next let's talk bags, and two very popular categories are leather and crochet. So with anything 70s, when in doubt, go for leather. And in my opinion, the 70s have the most gorgeous leather bags to ever exist. And we cannot talk about the 70s without talking about crochet. I actually crocheted this bag, and it's a great way if you don't have the budget or if you're having a really hard time finding a 70s bag, you can just make one. If you want to take it to the next level, I like adding some vintage pins on my crochet bags. Now let's talk tops. So I have 3 different recommendations for you guys. 4 if you want to count what I'm wearing: turtlenecks. But I have with me ponchos, vests, and ringer tees. So ringers or baby tees are short sleeve, stretchy polyester cotton shirts that have an outline on the collar and the sleeve. These can be pretty easy to thrift, and odds are you might already have one in your closet. Next, we have the poncho. Again, this is something you can knit or crochet as well, but these were absolutely huge in the 60s and 70s and probably my favorite piece to wear from the decade. They're so awesome for keeping you warm and they're very comfy. So last for tops, I have vests. I actually thrifted this one. You can wear them by themselves, layer them over long sleeve shirts, short sleeve shirts, turtlenecks, really anything. They're just kind of the perfect add-on to any outfit. The last category is accessories. So let's start with hats. So I have berets. Again, this is crochet. And then I also have a newsboy hat. Newsboy hats are actually pretty in right now. I believe this one is actually from Target. And I got this 70s crochet beret at a vintage shop in Philly. Belts are also a huge staple in 70s fashion. So again, you can always go for a leather belt. You cannot go wrong with leather. This one has some beautiful flower detailing. And then you can also find some more statement belts. This one's leaning a bit more 60s, but I wanted to show you guys how colorful and fun that they can get. Jewelry from the 70s is actually pretty easy to thrift, I will say. A lot of them are very chunky and geometric, but I just recommend going on Pinterest and really finding your style. Glasses are also a great addition to any outfit. Many of the frames are oversized, or you have aviators or shooter glasses. I really enjoy a square frame. These are oversized and they're very glam rock. So now that we know a little bit more about the 70s, where do we find this stuff? My biggest recommendation is eBay. eBay, you can find some really amazing steals, and it's easier to find authentic vintage in my opinion. Do not rule out thrift stores. I have found that's a bit more difficult to find vintage because it is a bit more popular now. But again, you can use modern pieces just as well as vintage pieces. Depop and Poshmark are also great, but my personal favorite is eBay. I just really enjoy the filter settings where you can really get down to the nitty-gritty. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Comment down below if you have any questions and what decade I should do next.